morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nickerson. I'm a senior at Friends Meeting School in Inesville, Maryland, and I too am waiting until Thursday to graduate. I will be attending West Virginia Wesleyan College in the fall and majoring in athletic training. In 1 Kings chapter 18, it is proven by Elijah to the Israelites that the Lord is God. Elijah proves this by showing everyone God's true power. He's confident that he can prove this because he knew what the power of God was in his life. He knew that by praying to God, he could ask God to prove himself at that time and show the Lord is God. So, what is the power of God in my life? Well, there was a time in my life when I didn't think about God's power. I haven't been going to church for my entire life. We only started going when I was about 12 years old. At that age, discovering what God's power was in my life wasn't on my top list of priorities. I really started to see and feel his power in high school. In my sophomore year of high school, I went on my first international service trip to Guatemala. While there, I worked with an organization that helped handicapped people that couldn't afford to be treated in hospitals. I think it was on this trip that I started to recognize that God did indeed have power in my life and the world. After that trip, I could remember back certain times in my life where I hadn't acknowledged God's power, and now see that it was there all along. For example, in 2006, a very close family friend, Brad Graham, who I considered to be an uncle, had a stroke and was diagnosed with lung cancer. Brad was told that he had only a year to live. All this was happening after he had already lost his leg to cancer. Not only did he return to work as a detective, but he surpassed his year to live. He passed away about 3 years later, in 2009, 2 years longer than the doctors said he had had. I can see now how the power of God was clearly present in all of that. I continued to go on service trips throughout high school, including 2 trips to Nicaragua. As I got older, I started to see God's power more frequently. Many of the experiences that I had in Nicaragua were examples of times where I could recognize God's power. To see how a community that by our standards has nothing can be so happy and thrive was just amazing. I haven't just experienced God's power while I was out of the country though. I have had many moments throughout high school where money has been tight, or I have been ill, or my mom has struggled with back pain. I feel that God has answered many of our prayers and thus revealed his power in my life. Money has always been tight in my family, so paying for college was always going to be a tough task. Luckily, when Brad died, he left me a fair amount of money to help alleviate some of this burden. In addition to that, I have applied for a wide variety of scholarships. Just a couple of weeks ago, my mom said to me, "Man, I sure hope you hear back from one of those scholarships in a positive way." And as she was saying this to me, I was reading the email telling me I had been selected as one of the Buick Scholarship Award winners. Now that's what I call serendipity. I can also remember back to one particular swim meet. I was really sick, but decided that instead of getting penalized for not swimming, that I would just swim anyways. I only had a few events to swim, so I prayed to God to give me strength while I swam. Against all odds, I pulled out some of the fastest times for those few events. I knew that God had to have a role in this because I didn't think I was even going to finish the race before each event. In addition, my mom has had a ridiculous amount of back surgeries over the past 8 years. She regularly struggles with back pain. Her most recent surgery was earlier this year. It was an extensive surgery that's goal was to greatly improve her pain and mobility. She had to be on bed rest for 6 weeks after the surgery. Now, with me being a senior, there were many events that were going to be my last and my first. My mom was determined to not miss any of them. It was just 3 weeks after the surgery that she traveled to West Virginia Wesleyan for the scholarship award ceremony. None of us thought she would be able to do it, and that she was crazy. But with the help of a wheelchair, she made it. She also traveled down to St. Mary's County to see me swim in my last meet of my high school career, just a month after the surgery. I believe that God gave her the strength to do these things so soon after a major back surgery. With all this to prove God's power to me, I too would bow down to the ground saying, "Lord is God," just as the Israelites did, after seeing the flame that was sent down by God ignite the altar Elijah asked him to burn. I fully believe that the power of God has the ability to take all of us to great places, no matter the circumstance. Amen.